The people who need to be running the Postal Service are the people who understand what the services need to be in that community. And that's why I lead with this notion that we can pay for it if we all just fight for our jobs and fight for our services that are only able to be delivered by having local post offices, by understanding what every door direct mail can do for your business or for your practice or for your community association or for your club or even for your lawn mowing service. The more information we have about what the Postal Service does for us, the more we understand that we can't allow the technocrats to take it from us. It's not replaceable.
It was impractical for a commercially motivated business in the free markets to deliver what effectively is fundamental within the infrastructure of both healthy commerce and human liberty. America's population is growing. It is shifting uniquely within each zip code. Americans are migrating, Americans are relocating, they are stepping into retirement, shifting with job changes, landing new opportunities, or simply moving on up. From the windows of 31,000 post offices in the USPS global network, each zip code was established for a reason. It was to effectively service Americas at the lowest possible costs, with no competition where government involvement is best. It is designed to be a self-funding social program that lowers the overall costs of everything postage can touch. The uniqueness and differences within the zip codes remain more critical today. And every plan that failed to recognize this has been a plan that resulted in unimaginable and historic losses, totaling the most tremendous average losses per day in any era of U.S. mail delivery. Stakeholders have the power to communicate and save their services. The somebody ought to do something is them. Be somebody. Be followed. Save your post office.
All right, we're going to jump right into it today. We're going to take a look at some really important graphics to look at that sort of whittle things down to the baseline of the year 2019, which is when we had our greatest losses of $8.8 billion in history. Now, since then, some things have changed, and we can take a look at those numbers a little differently as we look at the reforms that took place in April 2022. And we can look at the outcomes of everything that we were told we would be investing in to make things better, that in 2023, version 1.0 of Delivering for America said would make us, bring us to our break even, which is the only thing the Postal Service is supposed to do. And as we look at these results and as we expand and look at broader results, the consequences of these actions that have taken, they raise questions about where are we supposed to be? While losing $6.5 billion, gained 3% market share, focusing on the consumer package industry where DHL and UPS and FedEx earn, provide jobs, add to our economy. We grew 3%. At the same time, the vertically integrated from your PC click to your door, everything you need to buy from any source you can get from Amazon, including everything you can imagine, vertically integrated in one brand and one organization, without the need of private carriers, without the need of anything else. And with that model, they have taken over retailing and the package delivery industry for the first time in 2023, beating UPS as the #1 shipper in America.
In early 2024, one of the largest shipping giants announced it was forced to make drastic changes to stay afloat. UPS planned to lay off 12,000 employees in 2024, aiming to save nearly $1 billion. This decision comes after a challenging 2023, where UPS faced significant financial setbacks, losing over $9 billion in revenue year over year. The layoffs are part of UPS's strategy to right-size its global staffing, with 75% of the reductions occurring in the first half of 2024. As UPS navigates these changes, it will be striving to balance cost-saving measures with growth and employee welfare.
It's interesting because you look at the covers and the boxes are all checked, and we've done all these things. And as we talk, we're going to find out there's probably not the things we should have been doing because it's not the business we should be in. And what you really will see here is after a real businessman came in and took charge, they got deeper. The year we were supposed to have a break even, and the very year that we had reforms that for a decade were asked for by a handful of other Postmaster Generals. I never expected we could possibly lose more after the reforms were made.
Things were done in 2020 that set the mission to shake up American mail delivery. In early February 2020, Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin summoned 2 Republican members of the Postal Service's Board of Governors to his office. His mission? To discuss a new Postmaster General who would implement drastic cost-cutting measures. For decades, the Postal Service had operated free from political influence. But this time was different. Secretary Mnuchin was deeply involved in the selection process. Mnuchin emerged to influence the selection of board members who would hire Louis DeJoy, a Trump megadonor, as the new Postmaster General. Under DeJoy's leadership, the Postal Service began a series of drastic changes, aligning with the cost-cutting and price increases that Mnuchin and Trump had advocated. When this was reported in 2020, the consequences of the actions this meeting set in motion were unimagined. From 2020 to 2024, the cost-focused mentality delivered historic financial losses, a deep erosion of product and service values, the worst mail delivery in modern history, over $15 billion in deficit spending, and $4 billion lost in the first half of 2024. A year past the promised break-even of 2023, almost $10 billion was amassed in losses in ways never before attempted.
And I keep saying this, and I'm going to reiterate it over and over and over and over again. The baseline for everything that I'm talking about, the baseline for everything we need to be thinking about when we compare where we are and the success of where we're heading. So if you take a look, you've got in the lighter red here, all of the years that Postmaster General Meg Brennan was in charge. Actually, she took over in the midst of that. There was a Postmaster General Donahue, but it was before that. Postmaster General a little bit of help, gave her some pricing flexibility there. You see the years where the losses seem to be far less than the trend that it started to as you go from 2014 to 2015 to 2016 at the greatest, and then in 2017 she got some help. 2018 got a little bit of help. 2019 they took the help away, and 2020 they changed Postmaster Generals, and from there we saw a brand new business-like, cut the waste, really focus in on efficiency, focusing in on where we need to be in the future, focusing in on a whole bunch of things that always circle back to understanding that all strategies begin from vision.
In May 2020, Louis DeJoy stepped into the role of Postmaster General, ready to serve and lead the United States Postal Service through a time of great change. He approached the challenge with determination, believing in the mission and the people around him. DeJoy's vision, delivering for America, was shaped by the support of the USPS board, elected officials on Capitol Hill, and 2 presidents. He moved forward with confidence, believing in the path he charted. As he explained his plans to Congress, DeJoy remained committed to the goal of a sustainable future for the Postal Service, even as challenges mounted. Despite facing significant losses, $9.5 billion in 1 year, DeJoy worked to implement reforms and improvements, always striving to serve customers and honor the trust placed in him. When history looks back, it will see that no Postmaster General, from Ben Franklin to today, faced such unique circumstances or worked so hard to adapt and serve. DeJoy's journey was one of learning and dedication. With the endorsement of leaders and the support of many, he did his best in a role few could truly prepare for.
As the first quarter of Delivering for America 2.0 was concluded, the outcome exceeded the predicted failures that were made in Thomas Padlan-Malm's cover letter for an alternative, more strategic approach to planning. In the first of 4 tactically based documents based on current best practices and management theory that he sent to the White House, Capitol Hill, the Postal Board of Governors, The Postal Regulatory Commissioners and union leadership, Padlan-Malm discussed unaddressed core causes for failure that were inadequately corrected in investments over the last 5.5 years. Among the newest members of the Postal Regulatory Commissioners, Mr. Thomas Day offered an independent view as a new Postmaster General takes the helm. Mr. Day's comments have gravity as his former experience with USPS and his more recent time leading successful mail transformations in Europe as the Chief Commercial Officer and Chief Financial Officer at the International Post Corporation located in Brussels, Belgium from 2019 to 2021. In Padlan-Malm's manifesto for the U.S. in 2021, the pricing strategies for first-class mail were influenced by this organization research that confirmed Mr. Day would likely have understood that the strategy for gradual increases with new pricing every 6 months accelerated the erosion by up to 2% with every increase. Mr. Day is a West Point-educated strategist and his remarks reflect the stoic maturity his experience commands. The following were extracted from an opinion he posted in August 2025. Before I begin this posting, let me be clear that it represents my personal opinion. It is not necessarily the opinion of the Postal Regulatory Commission, PRC, or in particular, my 4 fellow commissioners. He continued. With the public release of financial information from the U.S. Postal Service for Postal Quarter 3, I can now offer a data-based opinion as to the implementation of regional transportation optimization as a subset of the Delivering for America plan. Financially, RTO is not working. In his post, Mr. Day gave a graphic exhibition of the failures as they stand. He wrote, the plan, as created by USPS and presented to the PRC, clearly indicated that savings would be achieved through reduced transportation costs and improved efficiency in mail processing operations. Neither has occurred. He discussed the potential for skewing and misrepresentation, as well as the possibility of creating a false impression as data has been used. He stated that actual transportation costs may be underrepresented since it only represents contract transportation. There has been an USPS effort to insource transportation, and these costs would be under the other costs category. Thus, it is not clear how much this is in terms of labor, maintenance, and fuel costs resulting from an insource of transportation. The PRC advisory opinion clearly forewarned of this problem with RTO/DFA. The advice was ignored by USPS. His experience and understand of customer needs and the critical importance of service value was central to his remarks. He wrote, on top of the lack of financial success, it is also quite clear that service is degrading. He had charts to show this critical failure. He discussed the only real need for a federally operated mail system, saying, the focus here is upon the unique individual pieces of first-class mail, single-piece letters, postcards, and flats. At least for the first quarter there has been a financial loss. For the first quarter and first month of the next quarter, there has been a degradation of service. For its initial quarter of implementation, RTO/DFA has failed to achieve its expected results. We will wait to see if this can be corrected in the near future. As Thomas Padlan-Malm sees USPS's future revitalized, solvent, and purposeful if privatized, employee-owned, stakeholder-funded, decentralized, planned from proper information that embraces the responsibilities of market leadership and the moral obligations of monopoly privilege.
As he retires, DeJoy leaves behind a legacy of service and a foundation for future leaders to build upon. The story of the Postal Service continues, shaped by vision, commitment, and the enduring connection between Americans and their mail. In the end, doing what is right is rare, but it is always worth striving for.
I later had a conversation with my postmaster about, the UPS guys telling me they're laying off and they're doing it. She said, yeah, he told me 2 weeks ago they're changing his route and he's going to be... I said, is that where the government's supposed to be? She said, we have to do something to save the Postal Service. Now, I go back to when I was in the private aviation industry as the head of marketing for a private aviation company, and the sales vice president comes in and says, we got to do some advertising, we got to do something. Now, he and Postal Service leadership, both of them, were asked long before this, we've got to do something. Why don't we do things the right way? Why don't we follow the advice of Mintzberg and Porter and Drucker and Rees and Trout and Ogilvy and Alan Funt, for that matter. Why don't we understand how to strategize so that we win? Why don't we think like Eisenhower and Schwarzkopf? I want to talk to you a little bit like I would if I were talking to Hiromi Gunji, the chairman of Brother International at the time that I was there managing product. And if just 1% of us, right now, less than 1%, get $500 in repeatable new revenue from EDDM each week, 1% of us send a $1.5 billion message that speaks loudly about potential if we put power where power should be and recognize where the vision must come from to protect our jobs and our communities. And this is where labor needs to stop fighting with management and show management the way.
On February 15th, 2024, while I was working at the small South Carolina post office, I noticed that the UPS driver delivered fewer last-mile packages than usual. When I asked him about it, he said that UPS management was genuinely concerned about the low shipping volume. They experienced the worst Valentine's Day in years. More changes were coming. He said that as a longtime employee, he had job security and a pension, but he was worried about the prospects for new hires. The United States Postal Service's plan to be saved included unmitigated job losses to the competitive package delivery market and 50,000 fewer postal jobs. During the holiday season of 2023, the federal government used its power to pull fresh revenue and unit volume in a competition for customers within the package delivery industry. The United States Postal Service claimed 3% more market than the previous year, led by the new service success of Ground Advantage. Despite more package delivery density in suburban and rural areas available for commercial package delivery competitors like UPS and FedEx to claim positive returns, the only plan imaginable to Postmaster General Louis DeJoy was to compete against the profit-motivated UPS and FedEx, while also losing billions of dollars in ways no Postmaster General before him allowed.
Now, of course, this is just a summary of the numbers as I see them, and you can have your own interpretation, but this is 2019. This is the year that I call the baseline year. And in that year, we had over 75 billion pieces of marketing mail. In that year, we had over about 55 billion pieces of first-class mail. In that year, we had, shipping and package volumes down here less than, about 6 billion, I guess. And you can see that's growing and that's growing and then it backed up there. But anyhow, but the focus here is in a capitalist society where free market commerce and free enterprise are supposed to be the driving force. The place for the American government is in those places where needs of Americans have to be fulfilled that wouldn't be practical or sensible for any other business to manage. Now, the fear I have here is the people who are in charge don't recognize that this represents hundreds of billions of transaction needs that in every case, except a few, could be handled digitally if digital could be as permanent, as secret, as intimate, as effective. Hundreds of billions of transaction needs that in every case, except a few, could be handled digitally if digital could be as permanent, as secret, as intimate, as effective. There's no efficiency if there's no effect. Fact is, 76 billion transactions of marketing mail. These customers need this. 55 billion. Okay, so that business is eroding. Tom Day, there at the Regulatory Commission, he was the chief executive of the Belgian group that did all the research that tells us that every time we change a price, and in these years here, like twice a year, we were having price increases, and that was going to accelerate the decline of our first-class mail by at least 2%, or not at least, up to 2%. So we know every time we increase prices, in addition to the natural erosion, we're going to have a 1.25% to 2% additional erosion just because we've given customers a reason to stop and say, oh, does this make sense for me anymore? Is this the value I need? And if our purpose as the government is to fill the needs that society has to meet what these billions of transactions, even in 2024, continue to meet, 120 billion transactions that hardly get a mention in the strategy, that hardly get a mention except for how do we get their equipment out of the way and get more packaging equipment so we can handle more packages, so we can go where the growth is, so we can treat ourselves like a consumer products company, like we can go out there as though we're part of free market capitalism, attack this market in 2024, grow our market share, grow our volume, do what we have to do here so we can be successful, to lose billions of dollars while forcing our competitors to cut staff, cut services. That's not what the government's supposed to do. That's not what the citizen-owned Postal Service is supposed to do for us as in America.
Right, so I've got to tell you about this incredible discovery I made recently. You know how sometimes the most obvious solutions are right in front of us? Well, that's exactly what happened with the Every Door Direct Mail Program, or EDDM. I spent a decade working in the postal system, and it wasn't until I retired and tried EDDM myself that I realized, wow, how did I miss this? Now here's the interesting bit. This isn't just about me having an aha moment. It's about a strategy that could generate $10 billion in year one revenue for the U.S. Postal Service. Imagine if every postal worker who talks to customers recommended this service. So here's my challenge to all postal workers. Try to add one more $500 EDDM customer each week. Trust me, it's easier than you think, and the impact could be massive.
Today's success, if we can get everybody, less than 1% of us actually active, doing something active, and this is why this is important, that we don't just sit on our hands and hope somebody else does it. And I say this knowing that 99% of the people are going to sit on their hands until they wait to see that 1% do it, and then they're going to say, okay, I can do it. So if you're a letter carrier, if you're a rural letter carrier, and you start thinking about what this means to you in terms of income and mini counts and pushing back, you're going to be more inclined to be a 1%er who's going, okay, now this makes sense to me. You're going to be the 3 to 5%ers. You're going to be the ones that say, okay, I see how this resonates and it works.
What if every post office in America could pay its own bills? No new hires, no extra costs, just pure local hustle. The August Every Door Direct Mail campaign is here. With a $1.5 billion goal, 0 added expenses, and a toolkit packed with ideas straight from the front lines, This campaign isn't about waiting for permission. It's about action. Every zip can drive new revenue and keep jobs and post offices alive, no matter what's happening in the boardroom. Labor's got solutions that management never imagined. We know our communities, and with EDDM we connect local businesses to real customers, proving we're essential. Grab the toolkit, set your goals, and challenge your team. No one can stop this movement, except us. Let's defend our post offices, grow small business, and show America what labor leadership really means.